Good evening again, everyone, and welcome to Bryan and Stratton College's third annual Women's Symposium in honor of Women's History Month. This particular symposium is entitled Women Who Lead with Purpose, and boy, do our panelists exemplify that. We'll get into that shortly. As Dean Barcliffe mentioned, my name is Jeff Thorpe. I'm the director of Hampton Roads campuses, and on behalf of all of our associates and staff and faculty, welcome again. We are so... Yes. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Eric's always there for me. And on behalf of all of the staff and associates here at Bryan and Stratton College, we are thrilled that you're able to join us this evening for the symposium. This year marks Bryan and Stratton College's 170th year anniversary. And I cannot think of a more impactful and impressive way to kick off our anniversary speaker series than with such impressive, dynamic women leaders who are on our panel today. First, I start with Michelle Ellis Young, the Chief Executive Officer of the YWCA of Southampton Roads. In addition to being such a dynamic leader, making impactful and lasting change in her role, we also claim her as our own at Bryan and Stratton College. She had been a professor here at Bryan and Stratton College for close to 13 years, so we follow her trajectory closely, and we're so proud of all the great work she's doing. Welcome, Michelle. So great to have you. Next, Mary Bunting, the city manager of the outstanding city of Hampton, Virginia. With all the great work and initiatives that Mary is helping to oversee and that make Hampton such a terrific place to work and live, we at Bryan and Stratton College are very proud to call Hampton home. So thank you very much, Mary, for being with us. Glad to have you. Also, Captain Janet Days, Commanding Officer of Naval Station Norfolk. As most of you are aware, Captain Days has the very impressive distinction of being the first African-American woman to serve as commander of the largest naval base in the entire world. And we are so honored to have her on the panel today. Welcome, Captain Days. As is obvious, our panelists are a veritable who's who of outstanding leadership here in Hampton Roads, and we are honored again and thankful to have them today. Our moderator for the evening, Angela Haywood, will do a deeper dive into the panelist bio following my opening remarks. At this moment, I'd like to take just a second and recognize some important folks that have accompanied our distinguished panel this evening. First, with Captain Janet Days, excuse me, the Public Affairs Officer for Naval Station Norfolk, Kelly Werfel, is here. Please stand. Kelly, nice to have you. Also, Captain Days asked that anyone serving in the military in any branch stand and be recognized as well. Great to have you here. Thank you for your service. City Manager Bunting also has some employees and staff of the City of Hampton also. Please stand and be recognized. Great to have you here. Thank you.
We have our Chief of Police here too, so I just want to call him out.
Oh, terrific, Chief. Thank you so much. Chief Executive Officer Young has also brought along some folks. Her daughter Taylor Young, accompanied by friend Latte Lawson, is here. Good to have you. Pardon me, thank you. Tanya Bird, Director of Community Engagement for Dominion Energy, accompanied by her mother, Elaine Pritchett Bowser, here. Great to have you here. Of course. Dr. Karen Campbell, Vice President of Student Affairs for Tidewater Community College, is here. Oh, she's parking. She'll be here shortly. Great. And other staff and employees of the YWCA. Great to have you here. Please stand and be recognized. I'd also like to take a moment and thank the wonderful Bryan and Stratton College team members that were so integral in putting today's presentation together. First, Angela Haywood, our Director of Career Services. Dr. Angela Barcliffe McGee, our Dean of Instruction. Ms. Helen Jefferson, our Registrar. In the back, thank you, Ms. Helen. Mr. Jacques LeBeau, our Director of IT and Facilities. Thank you, Jacques. And Mr. Eric Harrell, our State Director of Marketing Communications. Eric, thank you for the great job. And with that, I'm going to turn you over to the very capable hands of Miss Angela Haywood, who will be facilitating the remainder of the symposium. Thank you all for coming and enjoy. Thank you.
Well, thank you to our panelists for accepting our invitation to our third annual Women's Symposium here at Bryant Stratton College Hampton campus. I'm going to begin tonight's presentation with a short reading of their bios. You can read their full bios in your program. We're going to start with Mary Bunton, City Manager with the City of Hampton, Virginia. In 2009, Mary Bunton became the first female city manager for the City of Hampton since the position was created in 1956. Ms. Bunton began her career with the City of Hampton as an assistant to the city manager in January of 1990. In January 1995, she was promoted to assistant city manager. Some of Ms. Bunton's highlights of her career includes the creation of the award-winning 311 Customer Call Center, consolidation of several departments to improve customer service and save money, development of a nationally recognized citizen engagement budget effort, leadership in multiple development and redevelopment initiatives, fostering the resilient Hampton sea level rise and flood mitigation plan, and co-chairing with the school superintendent, the school system, Academies of Hampton transformation process, focusing on the community and business engagement part of the initiative. Since she began her tenure, Hampton was recognized with the All-American City recognition for the third and fourth time and has won multiple national level recognitions, including being a top finalist for Harvard University's Innovation in Government Award. In 2012, Bunton was named a White House Local Innovation Champion of Change by former President Barack Obama. Ms. Bunton has a master's degree in public administration from the Maxwell School of Citizenship and Public Affairs at Syracuse University and a Bachelor's of Arts degree from Johns Hopkins University. She and her husband, Mark, have 3 children, Parker, Carter, and Hannah. Welcome, Ms. Bunton. Michelle Ellis-Young, my sister. Michelle brings a unique and well-balanced perspective to her career and community endeavors. She is equipped with more than 30 years of experience advancing the mission of higher education institutions, nonprofits, and corporations, strengthening the stakeholder experience and conceptualizing innovative programs in community-centered organizations. Described as a connector of people and resources, Michelle is passionate about service and the development of individuals, especially women and young girls, and helping them to actualize their passion and focus. She simply encourages people to walk in excellence and reminds them to continue to MOVE, meditate on victory every day. An ordained minister and proud native of New Orleans, Michelle is a trained communicator who earned a bachelor's degree at the University of Houston in radio television. She has a master in counseling from Hampton University and furthered her studies as a doctoral student at West Virginia University. She has made Hampton Roads her home, and with her family, is a die-hard who that New Orleans Saints fans. Say it like I. Who that? Okay. Welcome, Ms. Ellis Young, to our panel. Captain Janet Days. Ms. Days has asked that we share with you a video.
So this is the world's largest naval base.
Correct.
And you are the first African-American woman to be made commanding officer of this base. What does it mean to be the first?
It means that I'm not the last. It always takes the first, and after that, it's game on.
Game on is right. As commanding officer of Naval Station Norfolk, Captain Janet Days manages nearly every aspect of the base, home to the U.S. Atlantic Fleet, with over 56,000 military personnel, 63 ships and submarines, 18 squadrons, and an average of 1,150 ship movements per year.
It almost feels like a small city.
Think about it as being a mayor. Everything from managing the infrastructure, the supply, the utilities, all the support services, not to mention the operational component and the personnel that come to this base.
How'd that go?
It went well.
Did it well? So one of the people who inspired you to pursue a career in the military is your dad.
Absolutely. As a little girl growing up, and your dad's an Army man, I saw how people responded to him, and so my dad had a huge influence on me joining the military.
Raised by a single father, when he was deployed to Vietnam, Captain Days and her siblings were temporarily placed in foster care until he returned.
And you know, you realize, and even for me as a parent, the love that he had for you
without
guys.
a doubt.
And the
Without a doubt.
sacrifice that it took.
And being in the Army was a means and a way for him to provide for us. All right, thank you.
You served as the destroyer squadron and aboard USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, where you did 2 tours for Operation Enduring Freedom, including a deployment to Afghanistan.
I served on board destroyers. That would have been unheard of back in the early 90s because these ships, they go to combat. Today, 30 years later, women serve in multitude of capacities in the Navy.
Captain Days gave me a tour of Norfolk's naval ships from the patrol boat.
Put this in perspective for me. This is the world's largest naval base.
Yeah. Never, ever is there not activity and action happening here 24/7. Ships come in, we repair ships, we supply ships and do upkeep, we do training. Our stretch and our reach is wide.
How do you move forward and navigate in a world like this when you don't see anybody else blazing those trails?
I had wonderful mentors. They just weren't women and said, you would be great at this.
Do you even think about it when sometimes you're the only one who looks like you in a room?
No, I'm so used to it.
Attention on deck.
Yes, I see it, but it doesn't bother me because whatever my purpose is for being there, I'm going to do my job.
Her impressive resume includes being the commanding officer of the USS McFall, a warship, and says there were challenges along the way.
You've had moments where people would question and say, you know, who's in charge here? And you say, I am.
I did have an instance where the pilot boarded the ship, went over to my executive officer and said, hey, Captain, are we ready to get underway? And I heard that and I said, we absolutely are. We're ready to get underway. Let's do it. He turned beet red. Don't believe it was intentional, but I think it's just the norm.
Now, over a month into the new job, Captain Days is still getting used to the attention and says young African-American sailors often ask to shake her hand.
They want to shake your hand and they say you're super proud of you. And it's taken a little bit for that to kind of sink in. And women of all hues will come up and shake your hand and they hold your hand and they don't let your hand go. I want to make my family and make those proud. And also just let ladies know that you can do it.
Thank you. Okay. We've read their bios. We've heard some brief highlights of their careers. So let's start our panel discussion tonight, learning more about their leadership role and how they empower women. Ms. Bunton, explain your role as city manager of the City of Hampton, and how do you see your leadership role inspiring other women who want to pursue a career in leadership?
So as city manager, I'm basically like the chief executive officer of the City of Hampton. A lot of people think that the mayor is actually running the city. But in Virginia, All of the cities, with the exception of Richmond, are what's called council manager or board of county administrator, board of supervisor forms of government, which basically means that the council or the board of supervisors hires a professionally trained city manager to run the organization. And that's part of the reform movement of government, to basically make sure that cities are run effectively and efficiently and not with political influence. Because when it comes down to it, there's not a Republican or Democratic way to pick up the garbage, right? There's just an efficient and effective way to do it. And that was sort of the notion of it. So I'm responsible for overseeing the day-to-day service delivery for our community of roughly 135,000 people. So I primarily do that through a great set of really wonderful department heads like our chief of police back there, oversee police, fire, libraries, even social services. For those of you who've lived in other states, in Virginia, cities do everything that counties do in other states as well. So we're a full service locality. And that means I have purview ultimately through my department heads and others of about 2,500 full-time employees. Not nearly as big as my compadre here, but a really fulfilling and big job. And it's really unique because I'm giving back to my hometown, which is very rare for a city manager to get to do. When I became the first female city manager in Hampton, everyone was like, it's a big, big deal, isn't it? And I was just like, no. I mean, because I actually had a mother who's a city manager, which is a really rare thing. It turns out we didn't know it at the time. We were the first mother-daughter pair of city managers in the country. There were a lot of men and sons, but we ended up being the first mother-daughter. And I didn't think anything of it because my mother had broke the glass ceiling for me. So it didn't seem like such a big deal. But I learned for many females in my organization and in other organizations throughout the region, it really was a big deal because they didn't think it was possible for women to run city government organizations, or at least large ones, maybe towns or smaller villages. But for a relatively large city, Hampton is the 7th largest city in Virginia, they saw it as an enabling opportunity. So I try to lead our organization in a very inclusive manner, not a micromanager. I think we hire excellent people and we create an environment where they can excel. And my best role is to find the right people that can open the talents and of the people that we hire and try to give them the tools they need to excel at their jobs and support them, and to really unleash the creativity of our people.
Wonderful, thank you. Ms. Ellis Young, explain your role as Chief Executive Officer of YWCA of Southampton Roads, a nonprofit organization. And how do you inspire women who want to pursue a career in leadership?
Don't do it. Just kidding, I'm just kidding. That was my inner voice speaking, just to make sure y'all were awake. So my role as CEO of the world's oldest and largest women's humanitarian organization, founded in 1864, allows me to steward this great mission in community here that has been here for 115 years, in where we work every single day to eliminate racism, empower women, and promote peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. And so on a daily basis, you know, I attribute the work that I do to the team that I'm privileged to lead every single day. Because if that team were not in place and doing the things that they needed to do, then the work that I do would be for naught. And so it's really my responsibility to be the chief cheerleader for a team that works every single day to mitigate domestic violence, intimate partner violence, and sexual assault for women and girls in community primarily, but servicing all of community. We have an escalation of men in our mission who need services as well. And so how do you keep that type of group who works in trauma
from experiencing vicarious trauma is through what I call a culture of care, making sure we're taking care, that I am taking care of the inside of my building just as much as I take care of those on the outside of the building. And so the work that we also do is centered around gender equity and racial and social justice. And so what does it look like to have a community that truly is vibrant and thriving through an anti-racist lens? And so as the CEO, I am responsible for really being on, if you would think about it, at the flight deck, right? And looking down to see what areas of this vast mission, violence and racism, do we need to be impacting, and how do we do that? What services are we providing? What programs are we deploying? What connections are we making to build stronger partnerships in community that help us to be stronger advocates for those that we call the least of these? And so I'm that chief cheerleader. I am the chief fundraiser. I am the person that takes all the darts. You know, when my team gets to go home, I don't get to go home technically, because truly we're 24/7 operation. And so when something goes awry, you know, a lot of times, we were talking about this, Captain Days, a lot of times when people see you, they see the glory, but they don't know the story behind all of what has gone on, right? And so the smile sometimes that you see is a smile we're trying to keep from trying to knock somebody out because they've done something they should not have done, or said something they should not have said, you know. But we carry a grace about ourselves that lets us go beyond that. So I try to make sure that the work that we do in YWCA Southampton Roads is a work that people see value in, because they never know when they are going to need it for themselves or for someone else. The second part of your question, Angela, was, because I got this allergy thing going on, okay, and my head is.
How does your role inspire others?
Oh, how I inspire the people. I just tell them what to do. No, that's not true. I try to lead by example. I'm a firm believer in walking alongside people, because a lot of times the work that we do in a nonprofit setting, people may not have done it before, or we employ a large sector, believe it or not, of first-time careers. This is their first professional job. And so you can't expect someone to come well equipped with everything that you need and say, go work your magic. And that means, as a leader, well, whether I am directly or indirectly walking alongside them, I'm creating a path for my team members that I really do pray, allows them to see how I walk alongside them, how I manage the stresses of the position that come with it. Because remember, I said our mission is racism and violence, so we get a lot thrown at us that's not invited, quite frankly. And so I want them to be able to see that even though this work is a hard work, it's a value-added work, it's a work that has a lot of gratitude, because you are, in essence, being someone's eyes and ears towards their safety, their stability, not just for them, but for their families. And so I try to walk in a way that allows people to see grace, to see compassion, to see hope. And even when I have to have the tough conversations in being a leader, and you do have to do that, there is still a grace in that conversation that does not leave people devastated. You know, now how people choose to take that conversation, I don't own that, but I do own how I deliver messages. And so I try to be very careful with how I have conversations with my team members that allow them to see leadership is not a scary task. It's a human task. And all you have to do is be able to lean into understanding, avail yourself to knowledge, into growing, and stretch sometimes, because I didn't get here by knowing everything. I got here because I stretched myself in areas I did not know and challenged myself to the next level. So it's obtainable.
Awesome, awesome, awesome advice. Captain Days, We heard part of this question answered in the video, but please explain your role as the commanding officer of the largest U.S. Navy base in the world, and how do you inspire women who want to pursue a career in leadership?
Thank you for the question. So there are 69 installations in the United States Navy, and Naval Station Norfolk is the largest one. It's very, very similar to being the mayor, quite frankly, of a city, because it is a city. 80, 90,000 personnel come on board every single day. And aside from the number of personnel and the mission set, it is an enormous undertaking. And so let me just give you a little bit of perspective. There are 13 piers. We have 18 squadrons of aircraft, a full airport, a port operations infrastructure, 5 type commanders. So we have submarine force there, we have air forces there, Air Forces, Navy Air Forces, Surfland Forces, Logistic Forces. And so it is a massive undertaking, and my responsibility as the commanding officer with my team of about 2,500, just like you, with 26 departments, is to ensure that we provide services and support to the fleet. So the submarines can go to sea, the ships can go to sea, the aircraft can fly, and we can go do our mission deploy around the world, which is what we do. Just today, we had a ship pull in from deployment, the USS Bataan, and ensuring that that ship safely came in and poured. Anyone here know someone off the Bataan coming in? Ship's been deployed for some time. That's every day. And it is an absolute amazing opportunity, but it is very, very similar. If you're not familiar with the Naval Station, it's a city that has everything that you have in a city. Okay, we have medical, we have dental, we have gyms, I have fire departments. I have a 500 personnel security department or security force, because security is integral to what we do there. And so it is a city that doesn't sleep. It's 24/7 with young sailors, young men and women, for some, first time away from home, first time having been out of the state and being away from home and learning how to adult. Okay, we have barracks where sailors live, which are very similar to, for example, on a college campus where you have dormitories and so forth, and everything that comes with that, and medical, dental facilities and so forth. And so my role there is to develop a team of folks that, one, I trust, because you as one individual, and I know you understand this, Mary, you cannot do it on your own. I don't. I lead, I provide guidance and direction very specifically, but my team with my department heads and all of those folks on my staff are the ones that make that mission a success every single day. And I'm somewhat like you, I have a whole lot of senior people that live on my installation. I have 26 flag officers. I'm just a captain. I have 27 admirals that live on my base that want to give me guidance and input every day. All kinds of little suggestions on things that we can do. And how to be very confident and comfortable in discourse with them and providing them the facts. I always say I speak in fact. I love data. And so providing them that information and being very clear and really being available 24/7. I'm not even kidding you, I carry 2 phones. And so as the commanding officer of that installation, something else that's not lost on me, and my folks sitting in uniform and those of you that are not in uniform, you have to understand and know your history, okay? And when I think about commanding that installation, an installation that some years ago I couldn't serve on that installation, that I live in a house on that installation that I could not even walk on the grass, okay? And so understanding my history and the history of these young men and women, I'm so proud of seeing these folks in uniform, these officers in uniform, okay? You don't understand, all right? I got off topic, but I've been serving for 37 years. And when I came in the military, you did not see many officers of minority nature. You didn't see a lot of senior enlisted sailors, soldiers, and the like. But today, you all have the opportunity to see folks in those positions and know what you can aspire to do, okay? And it's important that we understand and know our history in this Navy, okay? That Navy base, it took 106 years before someone of color, I wasn't the first female to command that installation, There was another female in 2012, retired Vice Admiral Mary Jackson. But I'm the first person of color to command that installation in the history of that installation of Naval Station Norfolk in 106 years. And it took that long. And it shouldn't have took that long. So the second part of your question, as it pertains to providing an example for other, not just young ladies, for young people, period, is being available, advocating, coaching, mentoring. And I ask you all, my officers, you all sitting here, you all need to do the same thing too. You need to pull others. And it doesn't matter, you heard me say in that video, I had mentors, but they didn't look like me. And it didn't matter that they didn't look like me. But I challenge you to grab a young sailor, male, female, doesn't matter, alongside and teach them and train them, because you have access that they do not have. You have a perspective that they do not have. And I did not have that coming up, but I make sure I do that. And I'll tell you, it's exhausting. It is exhausting, but I'm gonna give back and continue to put back as long as I'm here and I have breath in my body and I can do it. But that's what I would offer. And that's what I offer every single day, is how are you an example as a leader for others?
That's awesome. Thank you, Captain Days. Our next question is for Ms. Bonten. I recently read an article in the Harvard Business Review about purpose-driven leadership. It stated that purpose is often one of the main drivers of employee engagement and satisfaction. Within the city of Hampton, which employs over 2,500 employees, you have over 25 departments. How do you ensure you are creating a shared sense of direction and a commitment that yields greater performance and a sense of belonging?
So that's a great question, and I gotta say, it's not just getting the workforce in alignment, it's also getting the community in alignment. Because unlike some organizations which are really able to focus on the delivery of a product or the delivery of a service in interest of the shareholders, we're here to serve the general community. And so it shouldn't just be what our employees want to do, it should be what the community wants to do. So not only do we need to align, we need to align with the community. So we start our process with a community plan, which we update roughly every 5 to 7 years. It got a little delayed with COVID, and we're in the process of doing that now. And so we ask the community to come together and tell us what's most important to them, and in big strategic terms, obviously. And then we involve our workforce in helping us to flesh that out. And we work to try to start with our vision statement, what we're trying to achieve as a community, and then roll down to a mission statement, and then talk with each of the departments. The department heads work with their units to talk about how can their units best contribute to that vision mission statement, and what are their departments uniquely qualified to do to help make those things happen. But we have to think about not just what can they do in day-to-day service delivery, but how can they do that in partnership with our community. So I'll give one example, and I'm going to use this one as an example to amplify, because I happened to see one of our residents in the audience. Her name's Donna Little. I hope she doesn't mind me calling her out. She happens to be the neighborhood president of a neighborhood called Old Hampton. And one of the things that was really important to that neighborhood was a new community center or neighborhood center. They had one that was aged. It had gotten to the point that it was no longer in good repair. We really couldn't, we'd spend more money renovating it than we would building a new one. And it wasn't really right size because it had housed a variety of other functions. So we really wanted to design a new one, but we wanted to, in the old days, the way the city would have done that is we'd have the Parks and Rec Department and the Public Works Department go design a building, and we'd have a good quality community center. And that would qualify as doing your job in furtherance of having a good quality of life with a good community center. But that doesn't necessarily fully meet the best interests of the community and the neighborhood. The best way to do that is to work with the neighborhood, to let the neighborhood help you design the community center. So we spent an extended period of time with Ms. Little and other representatives from the neighborhood designing that center together. And it takes a little bit longer, but it's more rewarding, I think, when the community gets to see the looks on their faces when we opened the Mary Jackson Neighborhood Center in their neighborhood, to see what they had helped to develop become a reality. And it's more meaningful for the employees when they get to see something that they've worked on, that they were on the ground floor helping to make happen, come alive. So it starts with a lot of planning, and linking what we do on a day-to-day basis to those larger strategic goals. But then again, we try to tie that in with the community and bring the community into our planning effort, and not just have it be city employees working in an ivory tower, but really engaging with our community and bringing those visions and strategic objectives alive in our day-to-day work.
Awesome, thank you. Next question is for Ms. Ellis Young. Your leadership purpose is who you are and what makes you distinctive. Mark Twain said, "The two most important days in your life are the days you are born and the day you find out why." What is the why that defines your reason for leading with purpose, and when did you discover it?
My why, one of them is sitting in the audience. I am the mother of 4 daughters. Why is that so? That's my why. No, one of my whys is because I realize that I am entrusted to be blessed enough to care for the vessels of young women right in my own home. I would be the first to say, do you always get it right? Absolutely not, but it doesn't stop you from trying, right? And so my why is to make sure that I am setting an example for my children to follow, so that their children can be better off as well. Shirley Chisholm, who was the first African-American woman elected to Congress and then to run for president, I believe it was about 72, said that service is the rent that you pay for living here on this earth. And I'm a firm believer of that, and if I were to put my preacher's hat on, it would be the book of Luke that talks to us, that tells us that to whom much is given, much is required. And so I am a firm believer in the utilization of the gifts and the talents that you have been blessed to have. And those are the things that allow you to activate in purpose and in passion. And I firmly believe that the two things that I have direct control over that drive me to pursue my why are relationships and time, because that's an investment in both of those. In my relationships, I value the relationships that I have and build with people, because that is as good as any dollar that I could ever have. And I value time, because time cannot be retrieved. Once it's lost, it is gone, and you don't get that moment back again. And so when I'm operating in relationship with others, and I'm operating in the sensory of time, of moments in my life, I am pursuing my passion and living out my purpose, because those are active choices that I make, that I take very seriously. And in ensuring that when I show up, people know something's going to change. They may not know what it is, but they know something feels different, they know something looks different, and they know that something can be different. And so my purpose, I walk in that every single day, because if I can't walk in it and I can't maximize relationships and I can't maximize my time, baby, I don't want it. I don't want to be around it. I don't want to have it.
Awesome. Thank you. Captain Days? I'd like to ask you that same question. What is the why that that defines your reason for leading with purpose, and when did you discover it?
I discovered my why when I was a little girl and I was paying attention to my father, and I used to watch my dad. My dad was in the United States Army for 25 years, so my entire youth growing up until a senior in high school, there was my dad in the Army. And when you're a little girl and you're paying attention to your dad, I didn't grow up with my mother, you watch how he communicates with others, how people respond to him, the strengths of purpose when he came in a room, and how people reacted with him, and how he treated people, and how he talked to people, and how they talked to him. And I learned so much in that every single day. You know, dads can be strict, and they can provide you guidance. And when I was young growing up, I thought, oh, you know, why is dad so mean, and so forth. However, there were always lessons that he was teaching us. There were always lessons. He would have these little anecdotes that he would toss out. They nod their heads north and south. Your daddies did that too? You know what I'm talking about, right? You get your lesson. You come home. Did you get your lesson? That means did you do your homework, right? And are you studying? You know, you should always be reading something. And just all these little lessons that I don't know that I appreciated until I got older. But my why, as I was growing up and making decisions, had a lot to do with watching my father and wanted to just be a good person and a good adult. And learning how to be a good adult and a good person and have integrity and be someone that can be trusted, right? And you know that, you know, what your word is your bond, and what you say you mean, sort of thing, and meaning that, and developing relationships with individuals that I could have that sort of experience with and learn from and feel comfortable receiving feedback, even if it wasn't good, right? But receiving that and taking that on board. And I will tell you, young people, as you walk, you know, they say your friend circle gets smaller and smaller as you get older, but it gets tighter and tighter, because those are individuals that you absolutely hold you as you walk, because time just waits for no man and it does not last forever. So my why was paying attention to, watching, and my dad is no longer here with me, but he is here with me. No longer here with me, but he's here with me. I will tell you the joy that I still feel in thinking and thoughts of my father, and just wanting to make him proud and still wanting to make him proud was my why, and is still my why. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to come back to Miss Ellis Young. In her book, Becoming Michelle Obama, the former First Lady stated, one thing she learned in life was the power of using her voice. She tried her best to speak the truth and shed light on the stories of people who were often brushed aside. As leaders, trying to get our mission accomplished, we sometimes face adversity. How have you used your voice to break through barriers and have faith when trying to get assistance for the people you serve?
So I'm going to go back a while. I'm an only child, born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana, who thought I was going to grow up to be a librarian. I didn't realize that I was too loud. I worked in the library. I worked in the library through college, and really thought I was going to be a librarian. And then, you know, I had this dream that I would one day retire Oprah Winfrey from her own television show. I watched it maybe 3 times, but I knew I could replace her at some point, right? And so I've always had these friends in my head as an only child that I would talk to. And none of my friends had quiet voices. My friends were all loud, y'all. And so I always thought that I had to talk louder. Y'all, see, you don't invite your friends to stuff, because I got some of my friends right here and they acting up right now. But no, seriously, I always out-talk to my friends. And so when you can have conversations with yourself, you are really amplifying the voice that is within you, so that when you need to use that voice, it doesn't feel as scary and intimidating. And so I've always approached life as I am a lighthouse. And a lighthouse is that thing that sits on a shore that provides direction, it provides guidance, it illuminates and allows you to be able to see where you are going or what's coming towards you. And I think that's part of my DNA and the activist that's in me. I didn't really realize, quite frankly, that I was an activist or an advocate until really I showed up at YWCA Southampton Roads almost 3 years ago. I knew that I did good. I knew that I used my voice. I knew that I was drawn to help those that were marginalized and, picked on or whatever you want to call it, bullied or whatever it was. But it wasn't until I stepped into this role that I had to really look at things and see things from a totally different lens to realize that if I am not brightening the corner where I am, there will be no illumination in the city. And so it is my responsibility, regardless of what it looks like, who's in the room, who shows up, that I show up in my spirit of excellence, in that loud little girl from New Orleans, Louisiana voice that is diplomatic. They might not believe that it is, but it is a diplomatic voice, but it's a voice that's gonna lean in and say what needs to be said, and it's gonna have a tone of grace. Now, how you receive that, I can't help that. But what I am going to do is elevate the voice that needs to be said for the right reasons, for the right causes, and for the right things. Because this is what I do know and understand as we all age and mature. I didn't always have this gray hair. Y'all saw some of the pictures. It wasn't that gray. It was gray, but it wasn't that gray. Is that there is a price to the leadership. There is a price to the passion and the purpose that we pursue, particularly as women, and especially as Black women or women of color, that carries a certain burden to it. And so we can no longer, ladies, I want you women in this audience to walk in the authority that has been given unto you, to walk in the authenticity of who you are. But before you can walk in it, you've got to know it. Who are you? And so when you know who you are, I feel like I'm in class 13 years ago. When you know who you are, it leaves zero opportunity for other people to define who they think you are. And when you know who you are, it elevates your voice. It doesn't mean you raise your voice and get loud and obnoxious, but it gives you a confidence. It gives you an authority that whatever needs to be said, I am equipped with what I need to be able to add value to the conversations, to the spaces and the places that I choose to go. And so don't allow your voice to be stifled because the room looks different. Don't allow your voice to be stifled because you don't think you have something to say. I sit around some of the dumbest people sometimes in large rooms who have big titles. Y'all agree? Mm-hmm. Okay. So they don't always have the answers, right? And sometimes the voiceless person is the person who's making the most sense. And sometimes it's the person who's coming from the lived experience of what needs to be said in order for Mary to be able to build a better city, in order for Janet to be able to make sure she's taking care of her sailors and her soldiers that are on the base. It's the voice of the voiceless that carries weight, but it can't carry weight if it's never said or silent.
Ms. Bunton, our next question is for you. We'd like to hear about your community activities. What community-driven projects are you proud of? And what did you take away from those experiences?
Oh, there are so many. You mean the things that the city does with the community? Okay. Oh, There are a lot. I talked about one of them earlier that I'm really proud of because, like I said, when you get to see the community's reaction to something that they've waited so long for finally come, to fruition, and to have them be part of making it so, I think that that's really special. Another one I'm really proud of, we just did the groundbreaking of this week. It's not something that the city did directly, but we helped to make it happen through our fundraising, and that's a community services board. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's the state vehicle for taking care of mental health and intellectual disabilities and substance abuse crisis. We're working, when I say we, Hampton and Newport News are working with our community service board partners to open a crisis intervention center in Hampton. Basically, it's going to be a place where we can help people with mental health crisis instead of being in the emergency rooms, which is not the best place for someone that's having a mental health crisis. It's happening so much these days because people can't get access to quick mental health care, and they're in crisis and they're going to the emergency room and they're taking beds for people that have real physical health issues, and the ER folks are not the best trained to help people in mental health crisis. So we're building a mental health crisis receiving center, and I'm really excited about that. We just broke ground on that this week, and I know it's going to change lives and really help people who have that need. We also worked with Riverside to do a mental health emergency department not that long ago, and it just opened. But the one that I'm really most proud of, and this isn't necessarily with the community, but I think it made a big difference for our community, is one that you mentioned in my bio, and it goes back some time now, but it was the project I worked on to create the 311 Center. And the reason why I'm so proud of that, and it's now become much more common for cities to do it, we were the first city in Virginia to do it, and only the 7th in the nation, is I think it helped us modernize how we worked with our community. And I think a lot of times people assume the worst about local government or government in general. One, we see dysfunction on the national news all the time, regardless of what your political philosophies and beliefs are. It's clear that there's dysfunction. And so you tend to assume that all levels of government are dysfunctional. And then if you think about when we did the 311 program, back then, you literally, if you wanted to call the city government, you'd open a phone book. I know many of the young people in the room probably have never seen a physical phone book, but there were, these phone books, and you'd open it up and there would be like 50 numbers to contact your local government, and who knew what number to call, because most people don't know whether the Public Works or the Parks Department takes care of this or that. And we were only available to the public from 8 to 4:30. Well, most people are working during that time. And let's say you get home and your garbage didn't get picked up for whatever reason, but we're closed. And so there were all these things that made it even more frustrating, right? You already have this mindset that government is dysfunctional and then you can't interact with us. And so the concept with the 311 is, let's change that on its face. Let's have a number like 911 that you can call effectively 24/7. And you only need to know 2 numbers to interact with your government, 911 for emergency and 311 for non-emergency, and have it be easy to interact with government. And you don't need to know 50 numbers. You don't have to know a phone book. You just call that number. And if people have a good experience with that, then they'll feel more positive about their local government. And that worked. And I'm really proud of that. And the last thing I'll just highlight real quickly is the school transformation. And you might say, isn't it weird that the city manager is talking about a school transformation? Because I'm not the school superintendent. But I'm very proud because Hampton City and Hampton Schools work very collaboratively together. And we have completely transformed the way we do learning in Hampton. If you haven't heard about it, some other time I encourage you to find out about it. We have what's called wall-to-wall college and career academies in our high schools. Kids can go to whatever high school they want to pursue what pathway they think they're most interested in learning about, so that when they leave high school, they have a fully formed plan about what they want to do. We prepare them for college, military, or straight to work. But what's really cool about it is that they learn their core subjects like algebra or physics or chemistry through the lens of what they want to do. So like for law and public safety, just to bring it back to city government, we need a lot more police officers, we need a lot more firefighters, we need a lot more 911 dispatchers. And so what we get to do is we get to do their elective classes so they learn about those careers. And when they're taking chemistry and algebra, those things we always thought, why do I need to know that? They actually learn how those classes would help you solve problems in forensics or solving crimes, or how you would do court cases and things like that. So it brings the subjects alive for the kids. And once we switch that model of teaching, and my job has been to help like do the partnerships and find community and businesses to do that with them, the dropout rates have gone down significantly. We have one of the highest, if not the highest, on-time graduation rate. Our grades performances have improved significantly. Our SOLs have gone up. Hampton is now one of the most sought after in terms of are they doing it, school districts in Virginia. And I'm just so proud of that. And we're changing kids' lives, and we're changing the way our community is viewed so that we're becoming a place where businesses want to do business and people want to live. And so that's what you want as a city manager. So, I mean, I could go on and on and on. There's so many things we're doing, and you gave me the chance for the commercial, so thank you for letting me promote Hampton to everybody.
We're coming to the end of our program, but I do have one question I would like to ask each of you. As leaders, it is important to surround ourselves with positive people who encourages us. Kate Hodges, the award-winning filmmaker and author of I Know a Woman, stated, "Behind every great woman is another great woman." Can you share with us who are the amazing women in your life who have kept you lifted up? Ms. Ellis-Young, will you start?
I am the granddaughter of Maxine Simpson and Sarita Ellis. I am the daughter of Loretta Ellis. I am the mother of Aletria Williams, Taylor Kennedy, and Reagan Young. And those are my lifters. You know, when I think about my family, when I think about community and what that looks like, you know, I think about my best friend who died too soon, but her daughters that I have the privilege of watching them mature into the women that they have become. I think about membership in organizations that are all female led. I think about influences of the team that I am entrusted to lead that is 99% women led, with a 100% board. These are my lifters. And then I think about the value. Remember, I talked about relationships, and you touched on it, sister, about circles that get smaller and smaller. I have a group of women that I have not known very long. I think we've known each other for a year and 5 months. Maybe a year and 5 months, something about that long. 3 of them are here right now. And those women are invaluable to me. One of them wrote last week on something describing the nature of our relationship and talked about, you know, we've traveled together, we've laughed together, we've cried together, we eat together, all of those things, right, Tanya? She talked about all of those things, and she talked about what it meant to have a tribe. And she said what the power of that tribe has meant to her, and if your tribe ain't doing that, you got work to do. I want to encourage you all to find the tribe of people that are uniquely assigned to who you are supposed to be, not who you used to be. And allow those people to be the lifters in your life in the season that you are in, because that is what carries you to the future and to your destiny. And so when I think about my lifters in life, it depends on where it is, but it all comes back together again. But I tell you, the season that I am in my life, I like a small circle. I like a tight circle, because that's where I know I can authentically be. I'm gonna be who I am anyway, but that But in that circle, I know I can bring all of Michelle Ellis Young to that circle and still be loved. We're gonna leave that right there.
Thank you. Captain Days? Yes. Who?
My circle is very small, and in what I've done in the military all these years, it was difficult to develop close friendships. I come from a community, I'm a surface warfare officer, and it's predominantly male. It's predominantly male. And so just in my walk in the service, developing those close-knit relationships, it's been difficult. And then often you hear, well, you know, African American women can't be friends and get along and have, you know, tight friendships and things of that nature and what have you. But I beg to differ. I have one sister. I did not grow up with my mother, and my sister has been my champion my whole life. She's 14 months older than me, relatively close, but literally every step I have made and everything that I've done, she's been there, and I do the same for her no matter what. But then, like Michelle mentioned, you get to a place in your life, and it's a time and space. I call it time, space, and opportunity. And when that presents itself, you grab hold of that. And I am the beneficiary of getting to know some beautiful ladies, 3 of which are here today, who are becoming like sisters. And it is amazing because it's uplifting and it's positive and it's giving and it's loving and it's caring and it's feedback and it's all those things that I had not experienced. And I'm 55 years old up until a year and a half ago. Oh, well, here you go. Here you go. But I just would say to you ladies is to be encouraged in whatever your circle looks like, and it does not matter, and whoever that is closest to you, to hold them tight, because you need one another. You really do. Life is a team sport every day and all day, and it is an amazing journey when you have that you can depend on and count on and look towards and look to. And for those of my compadres in uniform, when you're always away from home and you're challenged beyond belief, you know, and you're tasked with things you never thought that you could do, when you fail at things, because that happens as well, is to still stay encouraged and to lean on one another. A mentor told me many years ago when I was an ensign, he told me, he said, you have to have someone, it could be a best friend, spouse, a sibling, but you have to have someone that you can lean and touch back into and call any hour of the night and have that conversation and receive feedback from them and without judgment. You have to have that, you all. You have to have somebody. You do, because it's hard, and it's always going to be hard, but stay encouraged and don't give up and learn how to fall forward. Okay?
All right, awesome. Ms. Fontaine?
So I totally agree with that, and I'm glad you said that, so I won't repeat it, but I would have said something very similar. And my someone like that is our former city attorney, who is now the city attorney of Alexandria. Her name's Sharon, and she and I had very similar backgrounds, very strong women as mothers. Her mother actually is a judge, and we really just bonded, and we became sort of besties, if you will, and we just felt like we could really connect and be honest with each other. And leadership positions, as I'm sure my fellow panelists will agree, they're sometimes very lonely positions because there's just so much going on, and you want to try to protect your employees as much as you can from the stresses of the job, and yet when you're done at the end of the day and you get to go home, you don't want to take it home. You want to be with your family and be present. And so, you know, there's very few people you can really share a lot of that with. So she was my one person. She is my one person for that kind of thing. But in terms of other inspiration and just connectivity, my mom and my sister are sort of the two big ones. My mom, of course, as I mentioned, was a former city manager, and she was my role model. And I joked that instead of going and watching cartoons when I was little, I saw council meetings. So it's not really a joke, actually, because she was a single mother, and she made it seem so effortless that it never occurred to me that it might be hard to be a working woman and raise children because I have a husband who's equally committed, and it's hard, but it's very worthwhile, obviously, and I enjoy it. But my mother has been a rock and an inspiration, but I don't like to talk work with her because she and I have different styles. But it's nice knowing she's in my life whenever I need her and however I need her. And my sister is a teacher and a very generous soul. And so when I start to feel like I'm getting too hardened by the cynical kinds of things that happen in government, I call her and she grounds me and really reminds me of the humanity and reminds me of the important part of what we're doing in terms of public service. And then lastly, I will say my true inspiration are my children. And you asked us about women, so I won't talk about my 2 boys, but I will talk about my daughter. And just say, and my boys are equally important. I love them as much as my daughter. Don't play this in for my kids because they'll say, see, I knew you liked her better, but I don't like them. There's no favorite child. But since I was asked about the women in my life, I think for any mother, your children are always your greatest inspiration. You want to leave the world better for them than you have it. And she and my boys are what drive me every day. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.